Today's a special day. One, because it's a Sabbath. And two, because it's Abraham and Maddie's anniversary. Did we say the number? 26 years. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. You got the mic? I need a mic. I don't need a mic, Gary. For the people online. I'm fine. And I discovered online that it was also Ray and Phyllis's anniversary today. Happy anniversary, Ray and Phyllis, if you're watching. So it's a very blessed Sabbath, isn't it? Shall we sing another one? Anyone got a song? I got plenty. What about 30? Faith is the victory. Yeah, of course. Encamped along the hills of light, ye Christian soldiers rise, and nurse the battle ere the night shall veil the glowing skies. Against the foe in vales below, let all our strength be hurled. Faith is the victory we know, that overcomes the world. Faith is the victory. Faith is the victory. Oh, glorious victory that overcomes the world. His banner over us is love, our sword, the word of God. We tread the road the saints above, with shouts of triumph trod. By faith they like a whirlwind's breath swept on, oh, every field. The faith by which they conquered death is still our shining shield. I haven't heard that verse before. Faith is the victory. Faith is the victory. Oh, glorious victory that overcomes the world. On every hand the foe we find drawn up in dread array. Let tense armies be left behind and onward to the fray. Salvation's helmet on each head, with truth all good about. The earth shall tremble neath our tread, and echo with the shout. Faith is the victory. Faith is the victory. Oh, glorious victory that overcomes the world. To him that overcomes the foe, white raiment shall be given. Before the angels he shall know his name confessed in him. Then onward from the hills of light, our hearts with love aflame will vanquish all the hosts of night in Jesus' conquering name. Faith is the victory. Faith is the victory. Oh, glorious victory that overcomes the world. I was just thinking as we were singing, I'm very thankful for the herbal remedies that I've learnt along the way. Last night I was getting a sore throat, so I attacked it with wild oregano oil. And then I did hot and cold hydrotherapy in the shower, and then I put a cold compress on my throat, and I think I've nearly beaten it, so it's not sore anymore. So, sorry?
Oh, it is oregano.
I'm translating. Oregano. Okay. Let's. Good morning. We'll sing one more song. 28. Excellent. Thank you. That's a lovely song. Face to Face. I could see Daniel was doing the victory dance, wasn't he? Faith is the victory. Face to face with Christ my Savior. Face to face, what will it be? When with rapture I behold Him, Jesus Christ who died for me. Face to face shall I behold Him, far beyond the starry sky. Face to face in all His glory, I shall see Him by and by. Only faintly now I see Him, with the darkening veil between. But a blessed day is coming, when His glory shall be seen. Face to face shall I behold Him, far beyond the starry sky. Face to face in all His glory, I shall see Him by and by. What rejoicing in His presence, when I banish grief and pain, when the crooked ways are straightened, and the rough things shall be plain. Face to face shall I behold Him, far beyond the starry sky. Face to face shall I behold Him, I shall see Him by and by. Face to face, oh blissful moment, face to face to see and know. Face to face with my Redeemer, Jesus Christ, who loves me so. Face to face shall I behold Him, far beyond the starry sky. Face to face in all His glory, I shall see Him by and by. You know, when I sing hymns, I do try and pay attention to the words, and it's interesting where it says there that only faintly now we see Him. And I would like to suggest that what Paul was saying in 1 Corinthians 13, that when I was a child I saw through a glass darkly. But didn't Paul meet Christ? Didn't he understand Christ in you, the hope of glory? Didn't he see the full manifestation of the glory of God? And aren't we now receiving a message of the full glory and the character of our Father in heaven through Jesus Christ? So anyway, I just thought I'd put that in there. So The dark things shall be plain. The dark things have been made plain, and we are receiving them now in the message that lights the earth with its glory. Darkness, but the light is now coming. All right, we'll hand over to Ben.
Is it on? We get, yeah, sounds like it's on. You guys hearing it through the audio? Cool, cool. Well, good morning, blessed Sabbath, everybody. We're going to see if we can talk a little bit more about the light that is light in this world, and we're going to look at illustrations of the law of love. And the scriptures also tell us that he who loveth not his brother knoweth not God, for God is love. So I want to show some of my journeys with Pastor Adrian in 2016 during that summer and our time in Europe, and show you some of God's love through the beautiful people that we have met and are now awesome friends of mine that through the inheritance principle, I've inherited all things. And so, yeah, Pastor Adrian's introduced me to some amazing people, amazing places, and we'll also show you a lot of the beauty of creation. So with that, let's have a word of prayer. Good morning, gracious Heavenly Father. Thank you for this beautiful Sabbath day, for the gift of your Holy Spirit in greater measure, a double portion, Father. I pray now that through this presentation that our thoughts may be lifted to you, and that your goodness, Father, would lead us to greater repentance. And we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. So before I start into the pictures, it would have been 2015. I'd become an Adventist late 2014. And within 3 months, we came across something that said, is the Trinity biblical? And I'd never heard anything like that before. I was a new Christian. I was just starting to read the Bible. I give zero thought to the Trinity. So I'm like, oh, well, everybody talks about the Trinity, and this says it's not. And so myself and my cousin and his wife, Shane and Amanda, there's a couple of pictures, I think, with them. We started studying it, and pretty quick we found out that, ooh, wow, yeah, the Trinity really isn't biblical, and that Jesus is the begotten Son. And at first, maybe many of you have felt the same way too. You're like, well, okay, that's true, but what's the big difference? What's the big deal? You know, we got to preach the Sabbath, right? We got to warn people. Jesus is coming soon. All that stuff. And so, hopefully, after listening to Pastor Adrian, I think it was the message after Chris's testimony, we see why it's life and death when it comes to knowing not only that Jesus is the begotten Son, but where his life comes from, and how the Trinity, yes, it does. It leads us to death. And so anyways, we started studying this, and we started to see it. And then I came across Theos. Maybe many of you guys have seen Theos and people online. And we started to see just beautifully illustrated through the Scriptures, you know, from Elder Gary and Pastor Adrian, and that captivated us. I'd never seen anything like that before. And we fell in love with the begotten Son, and so we started to email with Brother Gary and then with the secretary of the church at the time, and just to kind of keep him updated on what's happening with us. Well, we wound up, you know, doing things in a kind of subversive manner. We had evidence to suggest our leadership of our church wouldn't listen, but instead of going to them, which we should have done anyways, we kind of shared it to a few people in the congregation. And long story short, that word got out, found ourselves in a meeting with the pastor and the head elder, and that began like 5 or 6 months of studying, which wasn't studying really at all. Their minds were set, they were firm. And so as Pastor Adrian had said, we were asked the same question, or we were told the same thing. Well, okay, fine, I see you're not going to relinquish your beliefs. Just keep it to yourself. Don't tell anybody. And we couldn't do that, and so that led into further meetings, and then eventually led to us being voted out of the church by 2 votes, 11 of us in 2 months. It was right before that where I got to had the pleasure of talking with Pastor Adrian on Skype. That was an amazing story in of itself. We don't have time to go into that, but he shared with me his testimony of when he was disfellowshipped, and said, you know, that's all I can do is share that and encourage you in that, to focus on the love of Jesus and your love for him, not on the errors of our church. And that was really incredibly timely. Because I don't know how I would have approached that otherwise. And it rang true. And so we did just that. We were just fellowship. And then that was the kind of the beginning of my relationship with Pastor Adrian, and we got to know one another, and we were just fellowshipped in February, and then another group in March of 2016. And then it was the end of June. By that time, Pastor Adrian and I were Skyping quite a bit, and he's like, "Ben, this is just the beginning." And then there was one call in particular where all this stuff just came out. He said, "Okay, it's all going to come out. Either they're going to fully embrace us with open arms, or they're going to run." And by the grace of God, I mean, we really embraced it, and it was amazing because the Bible was, it was like alive and real, and I had this hunger to understand these things, and that led me to look at the covenants, or as our brother Abraham would say, the covenants. And it was, then that led into the appointed times and the feasts. And then at that time, just once I started on the trip, then we started to look a little bit more at the character of God. So this is a really cool journey, and the truths that our Father was showing to us, the Pastor Adrian and us, as we're traveling and looking and better understanding the covenants and then character of God. And then the mirror principle came. It began at the end of our trip in Tabernacles. So to see the truth unfolding, again, Jesus is the truth, and so we know He's alive and well, and He works in us, and so He's leading His people. And just to be a part of that experience is just, I can't even begin to express. I mean, it's kind of similar to what our brother Chris up there is saying. It's, why me, Lord? Why me? I can't, your goodness is just too much. It's too amazing. So with that, I was invited. I was invited to accompany Pastor Adrian on the missions work that he's doing in Europe. And it's not like this isn't Orthodox mission work of where we're building a church or we're putting a well in. This is like very grassroots, meeting with people in their homes, staying with families, home fellowships, just sharing more of the Word of God, sharing the things that he's been learning since 2001 and beyond. And so to be invited on that, I had the opportunity because I had some time on my hands, and then I just sold a business. And I didn't have a lot of money, but I had enough to be able to at least get over there. And so it was amazing. So this is a little bit of the visual side of what I experienced. And so with that, we'll kind of get started. I got to point it up here. Up. Okay, radio. Hopefully. I wonder, does this remote have to be turned on? Of course. Where's the on button? Oh, yep. That's right. Thank you. We're going to see a lot of that too, a lot of nature. So, yeah, you'll see that technology isn't my forte. Okay. All right, hopefully this will kick in. I've been told if I click back, it's disaster. So I can't go back. Yep, I got the right arrow. Should I try it again? There we go. You guys see it? Okay. So this is the beginning. I arrived with Pastor Adrian. We arrived separately. That's a story in and of itself, how we arrived. So I didn't know anybody other than Pastor Adrian. And I mean, I knew their names, but I didn't know what anybody looked like. And so I flew, on my own into Germany. And when I got there, I didn't know that Pastor Adrian's flight had been delayed a day. And I just knew I was looking for a woman named Yuta and maybe Franziska as well. And she's not in the picture, but we'll see her later. And so I didn't know what they looked like. And I get to the airport, I'm like, I looked on a board, and the Australia flight showed like delayed, or we're not sure what's going on yet. And I didn't know who Yuta and Franzi were. So I'm like, what do I do now, Father? Am I just going to have to, like, in this foreign country? And I speak, ich spreche ein wenig Deutsch. Just ein wenig, yeah. So I didn't know what to do. And then I guess probably because of the video of me, a short video giving a testimony of me being disfellowshipped, I think Yuta and Franzi recognized me. And so that's how they found me. And then we ended up staying a night close by and got Pastor Adrian, and we went on our merry way. So in that picture, we've got Timon. That's Yuta's son. Yuta in the pink there. And then that's Michael. That's Pastor Adrian and Laurel's son, Daniel's brother right here. He joined us for the first month, or not quite a month. First couple of weeks. Yeah. This is the little sleepy town of Quitzau near the Pearl of Germany called Perleberg. And so we walk we had a flat a short distance away from where Yuta and her son Timon and Francisca and her son Lenny were. And so it was really nice. We didn't really see a lot of people there. They were kind of kept to themselves, but there were a few people that we got to meet, and that was a joy to be walking all the time. And you'll see a little bit more of the surroundings there. Okay, that's Michael right there, and that's Francisca's son Lenny, and he was a real joy. It was fun this is a cool thing about this trip too. It's like we get to really experience. We get to stay with people. These are people who their second language is English, but the first language is right. It's the language of Canaan, the law of love, and the desire and a hunger for truth. So you just feel like family, and it was just a blessing. So there's Lenny, and then there's a story. You're going to see this owl at least a few times. Hopefully Shane, Amanda, and Samuel will watch this too, and they're going to see this. But that was my cousin's son. That was his stuffed animal, and he had asked. He was like 2 years old at the time. He had asked if I could take it and take pictures. So that's Hoot the owl, and they also bought one for Lenny. So Lenny got his own. Okay, there's Hoot with the statue that's downtown Perleberg. We did a city tour, and you'll notice. For anybody who hasn't been to Europe, their cities and their history of the people and habitation there, it's quite a bit different than America. Just the age of everything and the stonework and the cobblestone streets. It's a thing of beauty. Does anybody know what that is? Probably not. So Sanddorn is German for sea berries. Some of you have heard me talk about sea berries. That drink is a big deal in China and in Germany. It's like a health tonic, but it's incredibly tart and like acidic because those berries are incredibly citrusy. But they grow in the cold climates, and so we found it there, and I drank it. And it's a pungent brew. So there's just a beautiful little scene nearby. Quits out there, walk in the forest. Pastor Adrian, Yuta, and Michael. Here's some of just some of the architecture. Again, a lot of you guys have been to Europe, so this is familiar to you, but it was all new to me, and it's just really cool to be in a place that has seen a much longer history of, at least that we're aware of, a written record of history of people. And here's one of many shots of castles, just how that castle's built, just on that sheer rock, and there's a lot, that we could talk about just with the whole idea of castles, and that stemming from your value and your identity crisis. You got to defend yourself, and just we won't go into that, but it's just fascinating history. Just some of the streets, just beautiful. And here is this is Harz, and this is Brocken. This is one of the highest mountains in North Germany, and so this is quite a ways north of the Alps. But there's Adrian's son Michael again. He's a photographer, and he really loved it up there. It was really a joy it was cold that day too, and all of us were a little bit cold, but he seemed to be in his element there. And so the view, is just breathtaking like that, and very kind of desolate. We took a steam train all the way up to the top of this thing, and that was really cool. I don't know if I have any pictures of that or not. Here's another castle. That was in Harz, the National Forest area where that mountain is, not far from that mountain. And that was quite high, pretty strategic vantage point. We got to tour it. So just some of the views. Okay, trying to click here. There we go. There's just some of the imposing structures there, and the gates, and you just kind of imagine, like that tunnel would have been lit by torches, right? And riding your horses and through that, it's just the whole different world. And there's a view from up top, just how do you even get that stuff up that high without a lot of people dying? I don't understand, but yeah, you don't. A lot of forced labor. And so that was one of the ramparts. And so that you could see they had quite a bit of a vantage point. I just did the back arrow. We'll go. Pray for me that I don't do that again. Because there's a few pictures. Yeah, that's poor farmer. Learning to be a farmer, Abraham. You've got a number of years under me. Okay, so we're almost there. And then it's going to jump here. This is about to be the Netherlands. And this is a cool little side trip we took because if you guys were here yesterday, you remember, actually it was last night. When was it when you talked about your father? Was it during the afternoon session? It was last night. And this is his home country. And so, Pastor Adrian got an opportunity to go there, and I got to be a part of it. And we got to see the house that he grew up in. I don't think I have pictures of that house, though. But I'll show you a few pictures of this canal city. You know, this little village that you can only go so far by car, and then the rest of the way to the houses and shops is by boat or foot traffic. And so it was really cool. We rented a boat and got to go through all the canals. And it's just a little bit of it. It's very touristy, you know, but really kind of cool touristy, not your run-of-the-mill stuff. Beautiful flowers. You know, they had different hydrangeas and stuff in bloom and things I didn't know about. And then that's the North Sea. And we took a drive across the big dike, and it was incredibly windy that day and gray, and we kind of had a box of a van car, and I was driving, and you're just doing this the whole time, like your muscles are tense because the wind is just hitting you on that side, but the windsurfers were just loving it. I mean, they were booking it, 30, 40 kilometers an hour they're probably flying. So we got to see that, and it was a pretty cool experience. Anybody know what those are? Plums, yeah. Some of the wild plums, well, they probably had been planted at one time, but this is some of the cool heritage there, and it's probably in a lot of parts of Europe, but the villages there, the people, obviously, they're farming heritage. Probably this has been going for hundreds of years, where they plant along the sides of all their roads, you know, in order to get to the markets and stuff, all these fruit trees. So there were plums there were apples there were elderberries there were hazelnuts there were cherries, and I'm still forgetting stuff. Yeah, apples, pears, all this, but because times have changed, people don't appreciate it anymore, and so all this stuff just falls to the ground and rots. But we got to get all this stuff off the trees. And there's another man who joined us. I'll have some more pictures of him. That's Reuben. A number of you guys know who Reuben is. He's another Australian, born in Germany, immigrated to Australia, and then they also spend time. And he's actually in Germany right now, getting ready for the Feast of Tabernacles with Jutta and Franzi and a lot of people in these pictures. So Chris, a lot of you guys will be familiar with that. But this was 2 years before Chris went. When did you go, Chris? 1 year before Chris went. This is 2016. And so they were doing a lot of renovation work. That's at Wittenberg, right? And they're doing a lot of renovation work on the church, getting it ready for the 500th anniversary of the Reformation. So we got to see a lot of the outside under construction. There it is. There's the door. Chris had a much closer picture. That's where he nailed the 95 Theses. And they had it blocked off. You couldn't get any closer. We had to go through a different door because they were working on the whole thing. There's the inside of the church. I mean, just magnificent. And when you're reading the Great Controversy, you know, Ellen White describes, like this whole system that's supposed to glorify God, but it was just designed by Satan to get us to forget God and glorify man. And so you see it through the architecture. And that's interesting. You know, I mean, there's the opposite of, you know, the Spirit of Christ, the character of God, and the nature of the gospel, the defender of the faith with a sword, right? And Christ said, I did no violence. And so that's all we've known, and that's all that was illustrated and exemplified in the Dark Ages, including from our reformers, too. A lot of them, they promoted the use of force against people who didn't believe as they did. It wasn't just Rome. Okay. Yeah, just some more of the spectacular architecture there. There's more of the side of the church and the tower walking through the city. Okay, I think that's in Nuremberg, if I remember correctly. For any of you guys who have seen anything from Walter Veit, that's where the Rathaus is, the city hall. And he asks the people walking by, what do these statues mean? And nobody has a clue. And for anybody who doesn't know, these are depictions of Daniel 7, right? These are the beasts and the rulers. You know, so you've got Babylon with the lion, Medo-Persia with the bear, the rib in his mouth. And then I think probably that prior picture was Greece and Rome. And it was pretty eye-opening, you know, as Walter's interviewing these people to see that they had no clue of their heritage, you know, the Reformation. And so here's just another castle in Nuremberg. And we're walking up to this just humongous church, and that was a church where there's a balcony, and there's pictures of Adolf Hitler, you know, addressing the people from the balcony of that church. The architecture, again, it's bewildering, really, to see how ornate this stuff is. Okay, there's real bread. You don't see this stuff in America. And they use natural starters. So that's just yeast out of the air. There's yeast all over in the air. And then the bread, you can see some of it's a little bit flatter, but it gives it a good taste. And it's just so dark. I mean, if you haven't had really true dark, rye or seedy bread from Europe, I really recommend it. It's good. There's yeast floating. We breathe the yeast in all the time. It's floating all around us. So you just mix flour and water and you put a cheesecloth over it. The yeast will go in there and feed on it, and then you have a starter. So you never need to buy a yeast starter from the store if you don't want to. Exactly. That's the sourdough. That's exactly right. And then depending on the temperature, I'm getting a little off subject. It'll do different things to flavor the bread. But okay, so this is where Martin Luther was whisked away after one of the diets, one of the councils, and some of the princes feared for his life, and so they grabbed him in order to keep him from Rome. And this is where he translated. Well, he really created the modern German language, or the beginning of it, in order to translate the New Testament and give it to the people. And then I'm blanking on the name of the castle. That's the Wartburg? Yep. In Eisenach. Okay. And Chris showed a couple pictures of this too. Just spectacular. You can see, I love that we got to go to the settings of the places where these people, were inspired by God to do some of these amazing things. It's really, really priceless to be able to walk in these places. Okay, there's just more of the view from up on the castle at the Wartburg there. I don't like heights, so to imagine walking onto that balcony every day, that just wouldn't do it for me. It's a little small. Okay, so there it is, guys. There's the room where Martin Luther did his work. It took him a year, and his footstool is amazing. It's not a rock. It's a bone. Yes, that's from a whale's spine. It's a vertebrae. That was his footstool, as they say. Yeah. I'm not going back. Yep, thank you. Okay, so there's Ruben and Torsten, our brother from Germany. He's been to Talking Rock several times, and he's helping quite a bit. He did the filming and editing work with the Agape series. And we're picking some of these plums along the side of the road. There's some more. They're just beautiful. Just the colors. Every plum tree had different plums. Totally free disease. They're completely neglected. Nobody sprays them. Nobody takes care of them. Okay, here's my baptism and a number of other people. This was I forget what was the Elbe River. Thank you. This is in the Elbe in Germany, and yes, in Wittenberg. This was a blessing. This was it was a special day for myself and for a number of us. And it was really cool too, because there was a storm rolling in behind us, and in the background it was coming toward us. And so as we were nearing the end, we started to hear thunder and lightning, and right by the time we got to the cars, it held off, and then it just starts raining. So yeah, it was really cool. There's another really incredible bush, a shrub that was just growing wild along the road. Does anybody know what that is? Elderberries. That's right. And so we took those and we made flu shots. Here's what the flu shots are. That's all you need. It's one of the most potent antivirals on the planet, and God's just given it to us out in nature for free. It grows all over here on Talking Rock too. It's all over the world, really. And so that was fun. These are the sea berries, the sandorn. And there's this beautiful foliage, kind of like dusky bluish green, and then these little reddish orange berries. And I warn you, those are intense. They're like the real version of Shock Tarts or all that candy stuff. And so there they are closer up. And then I made, I like to experiment with food, and so I made something out of them. We'll see in a couple of slides, a cool smoothie. There's another example of some of this really dense, hearty bread, lots of seeds, and it'll sustain you. It'll definitely sustain you. Okay, that's what I made. It was just the sea berries and banana, I think, and a little bit of honey. And it was really tropical and delicious. So, and medicinal. It's got all kinds of omega-3s and omega-7s and vitamin C. It's like the 4th highest concentration of vitamin C on the planet. And it blows. One little berry the size of your pinky nail has as much as an orange. One little berry. So really cool. Ruben said it gives him gut rot, though, because it's very acidic. I was talking to him. So, yeah, you got to be careful. Some people might not like it. So, yeah, that was just I'm not going back. I almost went back, but I should have stopped. That was Ruben, and that was Francisca's mother, Julia, and then it was Lenny. So here, this is beautiful. These are like these white cliffs on the island of Rügen. as some of them like to finally say, the greatest island in Germany. And those cliffs are absolutely stunning. I'll give you a close-up. It's just chalk is what that is. And it was just a joy to be able to walk along that beach. That's Juta's eldest daughter, Ketsia. And I'll show you a few pictures of where she was at in northern Germany. And the beach is this black flint stone, like powdered with chalk. So really unique. And that's all just evidence of the flood. I mean, all the chalk is just, like the skeletons of all the sea creatures, right? The microscopic things, kind of like diatomaceous earth type stuff. It's just all evidence deposited there. So there it is. I mean, that's just chalk you can write on a chalkboard with. It's pretty neat. Yeah, calcium carbonate, probably, absolutely, very high in it. Okay, that's like a 400-year-old oak tree, maybe older. And this is at the castle that some Adventists had recently bought, which is really interesting to think you can buy a castle. It's a small castle. It doesn't look like a traditional castle, but it's a castle. It's like 50 rooms. And they were turning into a B&B and doing a health message, serving all vegan food. And they had a project on their hands. I mean, I know we here at Talking Rock Times is like, it's busy, but man, oh man, that was a monster project. And Ketsia was a part of that, Juta's eldest daughter. So just some close-ups. As you can tell, I love nature, and just trees are amazing. So I just want to show you guys. It's just a really... Well, it's not a bur oak because they don't have... It's similar. Because in Germany, they got sessile oaks and peduncle oaks and all kinds of that. I don't even know. It does, though. I agree. And then here's the courtyard at this castle that we stayed at here. And just the old architecture. I mean, some of this stuff is 200, 300, 400, 800 years old. This is the castle. See, it doesn't look like a castle, does it? Yeah, thick walls. It used to have a moat around it. It had a moat around the outer perimeter, but then apparently the fortifications were so heavy at the foundation, they figured that was to support it and when there was water there. But those days were long gone. There's some of the gardens that I helped with. I got to see, I mean, I didn't ask for any of this, and it was just a blessing. Like, our Father really cares intimately about the things that we love, and so he just shows me all this stuff in nature and gives me opportunities to get in the soil, and it was really just a blessing. And here's just another cool view of the castle. Some little mini ponies. Some of the apples, they had, orchards there, and it's just a beautiful thing to walk through an orchard laden with fruit. There's some more of the sea berries at this location, just beautiful shrubs. They got some spines, though, so you kind of have to watch out for that. Here's the inside of a house that Grit and I forget her husband's name, but they bought a home nearby this castle, and they were gutting it, and this was like well over a 100-year-old home, and it was primarily just made from cob, which is just clay and straw. And they had bricks in there and the famous German architecture with the wood beams. I just thought it was cool to be able to see. I mean, look at that stuff. That stood over 100 years, and there's stuff that stands a lot longer than that. Some more of the castle. Some beautiful apples. These are the most amazing apples I've ever had, and I stumbled into them by accident. I was just walking along a road by this castle, and I saw these things. Like, they're beautiful. They're little. They're like this big. And you got to try all the apples because every tree is a different variety. You don't know what they're going to taste like. Man, you can't, I mean, the flavor of those apples was like indescribable. It was so intense, sweet and tart at the same time. It was awesome. Anybody know what those are? Hazelnuts. Yeah, in the little clamshell husk. Now we're in France. So now we're going to start to see France. We went from Germany, took a little trip to see Pastor Adrian's where his father grew up, and then we went back to Germany for a little bit, and then we jumped to France. And here's some of the hazelnuts. This is right around Mark and Elizabeth Fury's home that we got to stay in, and they're in like the middle of the mountains in southern France, and in a home like this is the epicenter of the Albigenses, for anybody who knows the history of, again, some of those who preserved the different lines of truth within the apostolic faith, who a lot of these people were persecuted even by the reformers in the Reformation. And so this place is gorgeous where they lived. The setting, they're just surrounded by these low peaks of mountains. And yeah, that was really again, I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't know where these people lived that Pastor Adrian was going to take me to see. And when we tried to drive up to get to their house, it's a rough ride. And so the rougher it got, the happier I got. It was really cool. Yeah, rough. I know exactly. Yeah, it's old. It's old. Okay, does anybody know what that is? The burr. Yeah, chestnuts. They're native chestnuts. They're sweet chestnuts there. The forest used to be just solid chestnuts around there. And they have stood a better chance than ours have in America. They're not as affected by the blight that has decimated our forests in the east. So it was really cool to be able to see that. More of the chestnut trees. There's some of the view, these kind of gradual mountain peaks. It looks similar to here. There's some spots in northern Italy that look similar. The very rolling kind of gradual slopes all covered in forest. It's just beautiful. There's heather, and that just grew everywhere. That thin soil is very rocky, and this beautiful heath family plant is just there in full bloom. There's just some more of the views. Some chestnuts. You can see the chestnut burrs there behind that rock. It's a stream that they had two rivers that converged quite a ways below their house, probably, I don't know, maybe a couple hundred feet, so maybe almost to 100 meters below their house. But you could hear them from where we were up high. So it was really beautiful. I got to sleep on the porch for a few nights, and it was really, really awesome. So there's just some of the inside of the house. I like the architecture and how those beams, really neat. There's their boys. That's Daniel in the front and Joshua in the back. And Joshua just got, when Pastor Adrian was there this past summer, he was baptized. And how old is Joshua? 16 years old. Yeah, those children, those two young men, I mean, they're such a beautiful example of the gospel and their parents. It was a joy to be with Mark and Elizabeth. And they're very musical as well, so we're really blessed to have all of them and Pastor Adrian singing together. Here's where we went to, this is where we ran some meetings in France. That's the setting there at a camp meeting near, like Saint Rome, yeah. Yeah, and so that was a several hour or more, maybe even longer of a drive, more toward the east, because they were in kind of southwest France. The Tarn, that's the river. Thank you. So there's some more views there. Really cool place. Here's some of the materials that have been translated into French. The meetings were great. There's just, again, like there are people all over this planet that are they're devouring this message, and they're just studying, and they're hungering for it, and it's really encouraging, guys. It's really encouraging to see this. There's a lot of work to be done. Nobody probably will know what that fruit is. That's called medlar fruit. You gotta let it hit, frosts have to hit it, and then it starts to get softer, and it's supposed to taste like cinnamon applesauce. I didn't get to try it because it was a little bit too early yet, but yeah, really unique. Mulberries. This was right outside of the meetings. They had this beautiful community garden area where all these people had little plots of land there, and they had trees interspersed with it. It was below this city, St. Rome. The architecture was amazing, how they built it on these cliffs, and I'll show you some pictures of that. But anyways, they were gardening on top of, there's a river that goes beneath there, and so then there's this stone archway platform, and they feel apparently secure enough to be on top of that, and they must have put soil there at some point, and they're gardening right on it. That was something else. There's just one of the figs that was just growing there, just beautiful colors. I think that might have been my first fresh fig that wasn't from a store. That was awesome. There's just, again, some of the just ancient architecture and utilizing just the natural resources that they had at hand. And that stuff stands forever. There's the waterfall, the river. That's right below the city of St. Rome. We're just a short walk to get to here outside of the meeting hall. And we got to take some walks through. There's a different fig, whole different variety right there. Beautiful colors. There's some more of the view. We're kind of walking into St. Afrique. We're above now. This is how you know somebody is like a deep thinker or a preacher. They walk like this. So not only is it this, it's also the walk. I've seen Michael do it. I've seen T-Man would walk like this. I've seen a lot of people do that. So anyways, just a cool little thing. It's more of the architecture. And again, there's the beautiful river valley. And all those hillsides, I'll show you a few pictures, but it's all terraced. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, the work they did all that by hand with maybe horses at most. And, okay, I don't know if you guys know what that is either. Quince. You got it. That's a quince. And I didn't know. I knew it was a quince. I didn't know when they were ripe. It wasn't ripe. You had to let that one go quite a bit into October. So, yeah, exactly. You could barely bite into that thing. There's some of the terrace walls. I mean, do you imagine how long that would take to move all those stones individually by hand? It's incredible. There's some quince on a tree, just growing wild. There's just so much wild fruit all over the place. Now we're back at Mark and Elizabeth's. When I say back, did we go from that meeting then back to their house for a little bit before we went to Northern Italy? Yeah, so we took a trip several times. We hiked up to, they have a waterfalls right there above their house. And yeah, the Cascades. So there they are again, Yashua and Daniel. My tour guides, they could speak some English, and I could speak like no French except for, I think, castagna, chestnut in French, or chatagna, anyways. So I would say that, and they'd be like, oh yeah, that. So there's some big chestnut trees there. There's above the waterfall, just again, an example of, like these ceramic tiled roofs and this gorgeous stone. Really, really pleasant. Okay, that's some bread that Elizabeth made, kind of the Jewish style bread, and she showed me how to do all the twisting and stuff, and it was pretty cool. It was fun to do that with her. There they are. There's Elizabeth Feary, there's Mark Feary, and yeah, they're awesome people. Maybe sometime they'll come to America and say hi. She went to Heartland. She came over, and yeah, just really a blessing to be with that family. So if you guys watch this, yeah, and they're the translators, and they've translated a lot, and they've done a lot with the literature, and yeah. So yeah, bless you guys if you watch this. Okay, here's our way. This is an awesome surprise. Pastor Adrian had arranged through Utah, through a friend of hers, that we got to go to see the heart of the Waldensean valleys. We got to go to just the valley of Ingronia, and we got to stay. We got to stay right below the College of the Barbs. Pra del Torno, yeah, and it's amazing. I don't have words to tell you, so I'll try to show you. So this is on our way there. So we're in France, we're headed east, and so we're going through the French Alps and slowly climbing. And there now, so I jumped ahead there. This is a church that was right there in Pra del Torno, right next to where we stayed, right on the same premise, the same property, and that's where Waldenses today go, one of the churches, their temples. And so that, we don't got cut off. Above there is I'm probably saying it wrong, Lux Lucid in Tenebris? Yeah, light that shines in darkness. And that was their logo, and it was just a beautiful thing. Here's an example. You're about to see some roofs that'll blow your mind as to the weight of the stone, and that's how they held these roofs up for hundreds and hundreds of years. Pretty intimidating. Look at that. Look at those tiles. That's not a thin slate tile roof. It's unbelievable. There's the temple. That's the church. So we just, right behind that picture is where we stayed. And just unbelievable. Here we're going down. I don't remember the name of the cave. Maybe you do, Pastor Adrian, that we went to. It was near Shanfaran. Yeah, near Shanfaran, and I'll show you the monument there when the Waldenses joined the Reformation. Even though they were warned not to do that, they did. And then the rest of their story is one of tragedy, bloodshed, and outright tyranny. And so we're going down to one of the caves where they would seek refuge to worship freely according to the dictates of their own conscience. Here's one of the plaques there. So there we are going into the entrance. It was a bit tight to get in there. There you are. So we got to hear a short sermon from Pastor Adrian right there, where many men, I'm sure, have stood before, and probably many of whom were martyred for their beliefs in the begotten Son and in the Sabbath, and just in the appointed times as well. So there's just a view, just where we stayed. Yeah, it is. Words don't. I mean, when you read it in the Great Controversy and you get to walk it, it really does something to you. Some of the paths in the forest. For anybody who loves nature, you'll love it. There's the monument at Shanfaran that signifies or dedicates. There you can see right there. 1532 is when the Waldenses joined with the Reformation, and again, the legacy was one of tyranny and persecution from that point on, because they began to compromise on their faith. And many of them... It was the Bohemians that wrote to the Waldenses saying, you are apostatizing from the faith and joining with the Protestants. Wow. There you go. There's more from the monument, and you notice, what is it? Of course, it's an obelisk. So here's some of the view. of the mountains there in with the Proud Altorno and Angronia, the Valley of Angronia, the Angronia River raging through there, just from the glacier melt above with the taller mountains in the Alps. So this is like I think I'll show a map toward the end, but it's the very northwest corner of Italy, essentially, close to the border of France. Here's some of just the steps around that area, and all just this stone terracing done by hand. There we are going up to the College of the Barbs, so you'll recognize that, Chris. And I mean, we've all seen pictures. Maybe some of you guys have been there too. But yeah, just amazing. So we just lived right below that, for the time we were there. And that woman in the front, Daniela, she was she was the caretaker of this property owned by Adventists. And so we were just got to go out our back door and see this. There's Hoot. Look at the stones, Look at, just that's one of the roofs. They've restored it, but that's what it would have been like. And there's the setting for when these barbs, these uncles, the pastors would assemble, and it looks like they're even assembling once a year around the time of the Feast of Tabernacles. And then they would go out 2 by 2s, and many of them would never come back. And there you go, just beautiful. There's just another view of the buildings there. This and I took a hike one morning around the mountains. I think it's probably one of the last mornings we were there. It's just beautiful. Does anybody know what those are? Beech nuts. So inside that, as it opens up, little beech nuts, which they used to make nut butter out of them, and they would store it in casks, and it would last apparently like hundreds of years. So they're hard to process because they're so small, but they're delicious, really delicious. There's chestnut trees in the forest. So what was incredible is you would never have known it because the population today in Proud Altorno and those valleys is much less than what it was when the Waldenses were really there in their prime, because they were slowly driven into a smaller and smaller area, so they had to go more and more and more remote. And this is one of their last strongholds. And so the evidence is concealed by the forest, but when you go in that forest, you see everywhere all the remnants of stone terraces, all these stone homes, and that was it. I mean, it supported a population of, I don't know, I've heard figures like hundreds of thousands of these people in these valleys, maybe even closer to 1 million. And a lot of times they'd end up starving and disease would break out because that's the only place that they could go to. So here's, this was on our way up. We didn't get to the top, but this is one of the famous, sadly, I guess maybe infamous sites where when the armies of Italy and France, under the authority of the papacy, they drove the Waldenses up high, and then I forget the name of this, but this is a high plateau, and then Castelluzzo, and that's where they just threw them off the cliffs. And so these are some of the forests on the way up and down, and the forest was entirely chestnuts, and there's a lot of amazing things about those trees, and so it was really cool to be able to walk through that and see that. So what's amazing is that that's one tree, and it's growing on top of a rock. But what's even more amazing is that that tree has probably been cut, who knows, 5 times, 10 times, 100 times. The oldest tree in the world right now supposedly is a chestnut tree somewhere in maybe Sicily in Italy, and it's like, they say like 4,000 years old. Because you can cut that tree and it doesn't die. It just grows back again. So they do these rotations where they knew, I can cut the tree every 20 years to get whatever diameter of wood I want, lumber for whatever buildings or fence posts. And really cool. And it rains down these amazing nuts inside the burrs, which are more like, for a nut, it's starchy. So it's like a potato. You roast it, but it's sweet. So it's really cool. It's unique to the nuts. It's not high fat, high oil. Here's just some of the old tools, all the wooden tools there that they used. Went to a museum. The craftsmanship is, it's something that I really appreciate. And then here's our way out now. So now we're actually back in France. We're probably at this point we were maybe headed to near Switzerland, right, for the meetings?
That was through Mont Blanc.
Yeah, through Mont Blanc. We did this like 14-kilometer long tunnel through a mountain, and on a private road. So you have to pay big dollars to go through this. But there's $5 but there's no other option unless you want to hike over the mountains. So there's glaciers up there, just beautiful. There's Bulgaria. So now we jump to Bulgaria, where Dion and his wife Rusha are some of Adrian's translators, and the man is a scholar in his own right and just a student of the Word and a teacher. He teaches English, and he got a degree in, they say pedagogy, which is teaching? Yeah. PhD in it. Brilliant man. And it's kind of interesting. What was ironic is that when he was younger, like younger adult, like he was like a skateboarder. So he had this like theologian, scholar guy, formerly skateboarder. So cool, like what God does in our lives. And so we're in a valley between two mountain ranges, very wide valley, close to Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria. And you'll see some pictures of Sofia from up high. And there we are. So we're hiking. That's Dion and Pastor Adrian, and we're hiking up. That was a fun story. We didn't really know where we were going or what we were doing. And but God worked it out. And we got to an amazing vantage point on this hike. There we are. That's Sofia below us. It's a monster city. I think not like its population was huge. I mean, it was several million. But the sprawl on that city was just something else. So we really enjoyed our time up there. We have Dion taking some photos. That's a hot spring. That was my first, maybe my first seeing it. So the water comes out hot because of the volcanic activity in the earth. And so the locals there, they come. We're right in a village, and so everybody goes there, drives there, walks there, bikes there, and gets this hot water, and that's what they take a lot of their baths with. Very sulfury. You can taste it and smell it, and it's just like, But yeah, it was cool because we didn't really have much hot water at Dion, so he would go and run and get us some of this hot spring water. So here's at a baptism site in Bulgaria, and this is a cool story. You'll see who got baptized here. Very cool, yeah. Yeah, no pun intended. Now the guy that took us to the spot, Roddy, and then his wife Mary, who you'll see is very pregnant when she gets baptized here, like maybe 8 months pregnant. But we're here this is the end of summer, and so the water's supposed to be warm, but it must be glacially fed, so it was frigid. And he had to go in here, this guy from Australia, and they experience a couple freezes a year. And so this water was really cold, and Roddy in his foresight he brought chest waders because he fly fishes, and so you'll see he was able to get the chest waders on, which is the only way that would have happened. Yeah, it was. So there they are. That's Roddy and his wife Mary. They're probably about my age, probably early 30s, late 20s. There they are. There's the chest waders, and yeah, it was really cool, really cool. There he is out there in the chest waders with Roddy, and yeah, and Roddy was cold. He was cold. He's coming out, and then his wife will go in, Mary. Yeah, we were worried. Yeah, it was gonna get the process going. Yeah. So there you go. Here's an outdoor sermon. That was awesome. We just kind of spread a little picnic blankets up there, and Pastor Adrian just, yeah.
Up in the property of the monastery that the priest.
That's right, owned by Catholics, and we just parked our Orthodox, and we just were able to listen to some truth being preached there in the hills. Now we're on our way to Serbia, and so this is a bus drive. I have a couple of pictures out of order at the end of more of our trip over on the bus. Okay. So here's one of the markets, and if I remember correctly, the Serbian dinar, yeah, it was like 100 to 1 euro. 110 to 1 euro. I thought it meant, yeah. So that's just, the price is there to get access to all this fruit. I mean, it was just pennies on the dollar compared to but they don't make any money there. So to them, it's no different than what food is to us. But to any Westerners, the conversion rate is just, it's incredible. So you can get all this incredibly fresh food. And so some of the markets. There's Boris. Borislav. He writes a lot. He shares some of his journeys and experiences here at the Talking Rock. He writes letters to us, and Elder Gary reads them from time to time. And that's a story. I can't even begin to describe the trials that this man has gone through, from being a hemophiliac, born with hemophilia, right? Like if you get a small cut, you could bleed to death. Then contracting because of all the injections he needed. At the hospital, he gets hepatitis C. He was able to go to a place in India to be able to find a cure for it, and now he can help other people who have not been able to have any relief. And so that's a cool part of the ministry. But he translates materials, and then another surgery that he had to undergo, like they accidentally snipped his vocal cords, so he talks with like in a high whispery voice. Yeah, almost feminine voice, and just amazing man. And the amount of persecution that he gets from other non-Trinitarians because he is embracing the feast, the appointed times, and studying this stuff out. Responsible for at least 50, 60 baptisms. I mean, he's just a Bible worker through and through. It's a beautiful, beautiful family, him and his wife and their now three children? 3, right? Yeah. So that, again, we jumped a little bit here. This is back after that in Germany, getting close to Tabernacles time. My first Feast of Tabernacles. So this is when everything's starting to come in season. So you got acorns, many of which are too bitter to eat out of hand. You got to leach the tannins with water. But beech nuts, walnuts, that's the California walnut right there. The California walnut is the English walnut, which is the Persian walnut. It's all the same walnut. Yeah, you just rename it. So there's some cool apples in the background. There's one of the walnuts. They're not, you notice our black walnuts don't do that. They don't open up nice for you. You got to like peel that black gooey stuff off of them and it stains your hands. But these just open up and fall right out. Bunch of walnuts that I harvested and kept them. I think they were able to eat walnuts all through the winter, which was really cool. That was a jump back to Germany. Oh, okay. Yeah, I only had a few. Apparently I only had a few. I'll show a few more of the Serbia pictures at the end. They were a bit out of order. Here's Tabernacles, the location there in Germany. And we got to rent an Adventist, I guess you'd say like a hostel kind of, where they had a meeting hall and all these rooms where you could stay. And just a beautiful location, fall colors. And this is a setting where, there it is. See the hands, guys? See what I'm saying? And now he was probably doing that when the thought came to you about the mirror. Yes. So, yeah. Yeah. And we could take lots of walks. It was just such a beautiful location. There's just the ingathering of the harvest from the season, so to speak. I mean, we didn't grow all that, but some people grew some of that stuff, and it was cool. Everybody just brought this and filled this whole table up, and then with these awesome 2 women, these German Adventist vegan chefs, so they were preparing all this food for us, and yeah, it was a blessed experience. Yeah, it was pretty cool. There's Shane, my cousin Shane and Amanda. They came to Germany for Tabernacles, and Bob and Carol, some others from our church, who were just fellowship with us, and there's their son Samuel. We were just walking up in the woods there. Yeah, and hoot. Yeah, and there's a beautiful salamander. I just saw those colors were just extraordinary. And here, as I talked to a few of you guys about this next picture. This was one of the coolest communions I think I've ever been a part of. This was orchestrated by Franziska, and I'll show you some more pictures of their family, but Franziska Father Georg, we would say George in English. And this was something he likes to do from time to time, where we all assemble around a big dining room table, and we pass around bottle after bottle of grape juice, and just sheets of flatbread. And it would just go around and around and around, and it was really, really just a privilege and a blessing. They floated these candles on water. Such a beautiful setting. There's Bob and Carol from America, from where I'm from, Wisconsin. And there's Georg right there. That's Francisca's father. And this is just one of the times to just show appreciation and blessing for everyone. And I was probably on a Sabbath, when the Spirit's flowing in greater measure. And that was really cool to be a part of that. So the elder men, they were giving flowers to just the women amongst us, and the husbands to their wives. It's really cool. There's Utah, and there is Haika. And Utah has been with Pastor Adrian since really kind of the beginning in Europe, from what I'm aware. 2012. Yeah, she's a stalwart, just a bulwark in the truth, and she's done amazing things, and is doing amazing things there. And it's been a joy to be able to spend time with her and her family as well. There's Mark. Mark came from France, which was really cool to have him with us. And that's another one of Adrian's translators in the back, Susanna. She's German. Yep. Yeah, she's done a lot of work. And we got to spend some time with her and her mother up in North Germany and go to one of the churches there where he got to preach in an Adventist church. They embraced him. That was really cool. Baptisms as well. On a public beach with hundreds of people there. And we just come in, just park it, do this baptism right in the middle for everybody to see. It was really cool. There's some of the, again, it's at Tabernacles there in Germany. It's really cool. It's Bridget or Brigitte? Yeah. Yeah, she had a lot of spunk for, a woman who has a few years under her belt. The man? The closest woman to us. Yep, the other woman, yeah. Here we are going to a baptism. This is actually a number of people, including my cousin Shane and his wife Amanda. Yep, Torsten, Mark Fury there from France. That's Brigitte. And I didn't have pictures inside, though, so it was we did it in a public swimming pool, another public thing. And then you were able to give copies of Identity Wars? Yeah, to the managers at the pool for doing that, because it was special. It wasn't necessarily something that they were willing to do, but this guy just kind of said, yeah, why not? So that was really cool. Yeah, it was too cold. There's just some of the bread again. I mean, it's just beautiful. It's hearty stuff, and it's really cool to have good European bread. Okay, now we're Talking Rock. This is the end of the trip for me. Well, almost the end. We went to Ocala and then up to Wisconsin, but some of us know that man, Brian Heckathorn, and baptized by ozone jacuzzi. Yeah, so Pastor Adrian's been in cold, he's been in hot, he's been in jacuzzis, pools. Yeah, pretty neat. And under waterfalls. Did you do some of the baptisms here by the waterfall, or is that just you, Gary? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so it's in this occasion we did it up at the jacuzzi. And so there's some of the people here. We have people from Canada that came. This was in October this is the end of October of 2016. Yeah, Ray and Phyllis. Again, happy anniversary, guys, if you're watching. And Angel, her sister, and some others there. Let's see, of course we know that man. There's Wayne and Laura. Yeah, and they're from just up the road a little bit into Tennessee. And North Carolina, thank you. Yep. Sharon. There's Bill Cave's wife, Priscilla. Is that how you say it? Priscilla. Yeah, she's from Romania. That's a cool story because he traveled with Adrian 2 years before me, and another man, Igor, and Bill met his wife on that trip. So, and Bill was here last year when we had a wedding here for Pentecost, and the stories that Bill told, I mean, just leave you in stitches. He's a funny man. He's a funny man. Yeah, if you marry, I'm just a little tip for any men out there. If you marry a Romanian woman, you kind of have to don't argue with him about the color of the inside of your house when it comes to painting. He was very adamant with us, straight face. That was his wedding advice to Christian who married a Romanian woman. So it was funny. There's a garden that's nearby, which some have said this is the greatest garden in North America, better than even Bouchard. Some have said that, and it's beautiful. I mean, it's different. It's totally different than Bouchard. Yeah, those guys would maybe argue that point. We had some people that came that had said we'd been to Bouchard and we like this one better. So, but it's gorgeous spot. There's a cool, this kind of cool reflection mirror principle going on there. I really love that picture. That's at the Gardens. And this is a bit out of order, but more baptisms. There was the Foster family. Ricky's wife got baptized, Hyacinth. And there's Hyacinth getting baptized. There's Sharon and Gracie. And okay, so now again, here's the jump. So we're pretty much toward the end, but this is back in Bulgaria after the baptism. So you can see just some of the people there with us. And you can see how pregnant Mary is there. Yeah, amazing. And it was really cool. In addition to Dion, there was another Dion who may be in that picture, or may not be, but they were there, and he's a head elder at the local Seventh-day Adventist church, and he was just fellowshiped recently for this message. So they're under everywhere is experiencing, the persecution from our brethren within our church. And just again, here's just some more of those pictures from that baptism. up high. There's the three of us. Yeah. Preaching. Yeah, Dion translating. There's a couple of times, too, I almost hit the back button. I'm glad I didn't. There's been a couple of times where Dion, in translating, like just different aspects from the character of God and the present cross, the ever-present cross, when I was there, but then every successive year, Adrian goes back, where he has to stop translating, and he just breaks down and he just weeps. He just weeps. Tears of joy. Yeah, it's amazing. This changes people's lives. We know it, for those of us who have experienced it ourselves. But, yeah, this is the bus over to Serbia that we took. And, yeah, some more. Again, this is the last few pictures here. They're just kind of a little bit jumpy. There's in France, pictures of people taking pictures. Yeah. And there's Elizabeth Fury, again, and her boys. And Mark, this is after we just got off the plane. Toulouse, yes. And here's the trip we took from where they are near Arafat. They're not far from Toulouse, as you can see. And then that's the trip we took into northern Italy. Yeah, the Tour de France, the real Tour de France. To Torre Pellice, which is where the Valley of Ingronia is.
The city of Albi is from the Albigenses. That's where the Albigenses
Yep, there it is. So that is like at the heart of, the groups of men and women who preserve the truth. That's our heritage. Yeah, absolutely. So it's really cool to see that in a number of places in Europe where people are receiving the truth, that they have a long history of, the Albigenses or the Waldenses, or the Huguenots. Really cool. There we are, enjoying lunch at the camp meeting. And here's some of the pictures from our Bible training. We did about a month worth of meetings in Germany during our time there, earlier part of our stay. So there's also a Georg, Hans Georg, and on the left, so the guy with the beard, well, because to be on the, yeah. Yeah, the white beard, yeah. And then there's Reuben. Some of you know Reuben. Yeah, with the beard. And there's Franziska. Then see Lenny, the young man, that's her son, and that's her father, Georg. And Christiana, thank you, and her children, she came. They're German, but they had to immigrate to France because of homeschool issues. And so they had to take their family outside, which is a number of Germans will do that. And so here's just some of the fellowship we had in the meals. We would rotate, myself and Franziska, and Utah, we would rotate in the kitchen preparing food and for everybody. And it was a lot of fun. It was cool. I got to, I got to do a lot with food, and help people out in cooking. And we could develop the quinoa pancakes for Pastor Adrian. Yeah. So, yeah, it was really fun. Yeah, well, yeah. It was just like what we always do. You just use a binder of, in that case it was chia seeds, and use the Thermomix that we don't have in America. You just grind that flour, and then you just add enough of a proportion for your egg, or your flax or your chia, and then it just makes these awesome flatbread pancakes. So it's not too different from the quinoa flatbread you make. So yeah. Here's just a cool shot of us after the meeting. Christiana, Susanna, again on the left, in the middle row, one of the translators. Christiana's family, and Frank is her husband who wasn't there. Is that his name? Frank. Yeah, so they're children. And there's Franziska's mother, Julia. We see Georg in the back, Hans Georg. And just again, kind of it was a nice, small, little intimate gathering place there. And we experienced some amazing blessings in that room, especially with Franziska's father there in the red. Georg, on the new moon. You talk about the Spirit flowing at the appointed times. It's true. Chris has a testimony that he told us about, again, his grandparents coming into the truth about father and son on a new moon. It's real. It's real. Yeah, I can't stay long inside. The Georg story. So Georg was really resistant. Thank you. He was really resistant to the appointed times. And so in order to get there, though, you got to look at the covenants and understanding the biblical understanding of the covenants is taught by Jones and Wagner and is endorsed by Ellen White. And Galatians chapter 3 and 4 really illustrate that beautifully. And so he didn't understand that, as most of us didn't. And so that's why a lot of us resist the feast. We don't understand what is ceremonial and what isn't. And we don't know the divine pattern, and so an amplification of the Sabbath and what the Sabbath is. But long story short, we've been doing a lot of praying Pastor Adrian and Ruben and myself, and because a lot of this really hinges on, hopefully he'll listen to this. They know the story already, but a lot of for the next step for this message to really be embraced in Germany, men needed to take this up, and that man, Georg, was a key man in this movement in Germany, and he was resisting, and so for whatever reason, just Pastor Adrian, again, the Spirit was flowing, and he just that night, with what he laid out, he took a risk, but he just trusted our Father that your Spirit's coming, and I'm going to preach this, and I'll leave it up to you. And so with what he was able to share, like when that was done, Georg, raised his hand to make a comment, and he said, you have me sweating in there, and he rattled his cage, and so from that point on, he was just a new man. He just started to be open and start studying these things, accepting these truths, and right now him and Ruben, they've really taken to one another. They have a close brotherhood, and so they're, as we speak, preparing for Tabernacles in Germany. And you guys will go see them after Tabernacles, right? Yeah. Absolutely. And I got, I think, one, maybe two more pictures. Here's some more of the baptisms in the Elbe River. It's just a couple of the others. Let's see. That's an awesome picture there. That was one, I don't know who took that. Maybe I did, but it doesn't. The photo quality looks too good for my phone. Who knows? But yeah, that's just, I love that picture. That's at the Wartburg, again, where Martin Luther was taken away and protected for a year. And it was a blessing to be able to be a part of this. And I really encourage us just to really, that, God is no respecter of persons. His love is without condition, and which means every one of his children, including people who have murdered people, including people who have even raped people, including women who are prostitutes. He loves them no differently than he loves any of us. And we're all those things in our hearts anyways. And so just to have the love in our hearts from our Father who is agape to all of the people out in this world, into all these countries, that this was really amazing for me to be able to experience this. And I really look forward to seeing how our Father will work. And as it's growing, there are more and more people. Pastor Adrian cannot get to all these places. There's too many now, which is such a huge blessing. And he's seeking to mentor up young men, to be able to, who desire to partake in this, who have seen God's goodness. And I know that our brother Chris upstairs will likely be joining Pastor Adrian next year. And so hopefully that was a bit of encouragement for you, brother. And with that, let's close with prayer. Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for just the time on this Sabbath to behold your love as seen through just your children, Father, your children all over this world, in all corners of this earth, who are united in bands of love, Father, that no one can break asunder, Father. And I just pray that Father, that you would just give us a heart for those around us in our communities, it starts in our families first, Father, and then out into our communities, within our churches, whether they be to heathens or to professing Christians, Father, that to show the world and to tell the world that you are love, and that there's no darkness and destruction in you, and that if we've seen your Son, we've seen you. And so I pray that we would see you on this day. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So I think, probably like 10 minutes, I'm thinking, guys? Probably right about 11:30. That's when we'll go. Or 10:30? 11:30. Yeah. this off. Well, praise God.
South Africa.
We'd love to.
Just good to let people know about the movement. And
Amen.